Ahoy fellow sailors! Welcome back to Hard Knot Life Sailing. In this video with fiberglass to support legs, we've been sharing every detail of this fabrication. If you want to watch the process from the beginning, hit the link on the description. It will take you straight to episode 92 and you can start watching it from there. Enjoy this episode!
Alright, now we're ready to laminate this. I'm first going to put on these 3 layers at the bottom that are tapering smaller because I want to flare this out a little bit. And then I have my sheets. They were rolled out, but I just unrolled them to double check something. Got 2 layers I'm going to roll here. So at the bottom will actually be 5 layers, then 4, 3, and then 2 and 1 on here. Just wrapping around about halfway around these edges. When I do the other side, I'll follow the same suit, making a full wrap around. That's it, let's get started. Alright, now I got that all covered with its first layer of fiberglass biaxial overlapping into this arm. So then this arm will then overlap that. Everything will be overlapping. I don't want any seams. I brought these corners around a little bit. And then these ones come around, so they'll just keep overlapping each other. After this hardens, I'll just do a real quick sand to take off if there's any bumps. And then I'm going to be doing a second coat just like that. And then the same over on this side. We're going to let that harden up and get started again. I'll have to be tomorrow now because the store's closed and I'm out of peel ply. Alright, it's the next morning. This one's all hardened up. I'm not loving it. There's a little bit of air got in behind it. I don't think I had enough resin on there. It was really thick at the bottom if you remember. And I think that absorbed more resin. This is only the layer up against the core, so I scuffed it up good with 40 grit paper so that the next layer will seep into it a bit. I'm going to go a little bit heavier with the resin. Now I'm just cutting off my cloths. It's raining here all the time, so I got all my support arms here hanging up to keep out of the rain and dry off from some of the rain that got in here overnight. It was blowing good. And my pattern, I'm trimming it a bit. It was a little bit big. I wrapped around the edges too much, which just kind of made a mess in the morning. So I'm trimming that back a little bit. I wanted to stop right at the midway point while it wraps around. That's it. I'm trying to cut this stuff up. I had a little board set up there to roll my cloth out on, but now it's raining again. I'm going to find an even smaller space to trim this. We'll record again when things get drier. So in most cases I just make a dotted line where I want to cut this out. This I marked on here as a right side, so I'm keeping track of what I cut because I have them drying inside because it's just too wet out here. Now I set up a tarp over top of me. It's keeping a lot of the water off, but definitely not all the water. It's not a great tarp, so it's still dripping. So keep track of what I've cut and mark it on here and then go ahead and cut it out. It's as simple as that. I modified my template a little bit so it's a little closer now, and these next sheets should go on a little bit better. I'd like to mention, I didn't know exactly how the weight of this before. This is 16-ounce biaxial. So it has a crisscross of straight grains and then chop mat all sewn together. It makes for an excellent load-bearing fiberglass. You get strength in every direction. And it's pretty thick, so putting a couple layers of this, you have a lot of structure there. And it really helps to have good scissors. These are decent scissors, not great scissors, but they're decent ones. There's also electric ones that you can buy, but that would not be available here. Alright, so I got this one on here. Have some difficulties around the edges getting that peel ply to stay. It keeps developing a few bubbles here and there, even though I just saturated everything until it was running. Like I could push the fluid along here, but it's still giving me some white spots. It's quite a bit more difficult, I'm finding, to work on a vertical surface over the horizontal. So this is what I was doing here, is just taping this peel ply, and I put a bit of saran wrap. This is kind of an experiment. It's more of like a shipping wrap. It's a cellophane, but it's only like 4 inches wide. I tried wrapping that around here, hoping that it should come off fine because there's a barrier of peel ply in between, and that'll hopefully keep this edge tight. That and the mixture of tape. Hopefully this cures before more rain comes, because this rain has been a nuisance. Check back with you soon. Hello everyone, it's the next day now, and this is the first coat on this side. Turned out pretty nice and flat. It still has a bit of dry spots behind against the core material. So again, I'm going to scuff that up a little bit, and I'm going to sand down these edges, which are going to be overlapping. It's hard to get that tight against the corner. I'd like to point out my experiment using this cellophane wrap to get the edges tight. When I wrapped it around here, that worked very well. It did not stick at all. The cellophane just came right off, and it kept it tight against here. But I do have an air pocket here that I'm gonna have to address. Getting around corners with heavy glass is very challenging, and hopefully I'll get better at it as I go on, because I still have to put some more layers on this. I haven't done any on the backside yet, except for one just to hold it together while I was cutting this groove out. There's one thin layer on the back, but none of these heavy layers. So I'm gonna prepare these now and get them ready for another coat. All right, we're working against the clock here. There's definitely gonna be more rain. There is all the time here. We've got a period now between the rain. I'm gonna try to get a coat on both sides of this arm here. One little patch here, because I want this to extend up here in my template. For some reason, the arm didn't match up, so I had to take some off the bottom and lost it off the top. So I'm gonna add a little piece there. I'm gonna do both sides of the other arm, because now being able to wrap it with the cellophane, it gives me a nice wraparound effect. Like, it gives me much nicer edges. So I'm just going to do both sides and wrap it up tight with the peel ply and then the cellophane over top of it, because that worked really well. So let's do this. It did start raining. I made a makeshift roof over top of where I just laid the new sheets. I wrapped this up nice with the cellophane and pushed out the excess resin. I think that's going to work out really well. I'm going to clean up these tools and wait for this rain to pass. All right, the sun is out now. The sky is clearing, so we're going to continue on fiberglassing that beam. Got both sides of the supporting arm done. That's still a little bit tacky. I'm going to leave that for a while and get started on this one. Good morning. It's the next day now, and I just want to show how easily the cellophane comes off. It doesn't stick at all. I got peel ply on there. You can see the resin on the cellophane. It just comes right off. It gives me nice rounded hard edges. I'm going to continue cleaning this up, and we're going to get another coat on here. You've probably seen enough of that, so I'm just going to get these coats on here, get this built up. I'm going to put some extra supporting strips at the tops, and then we're going to get started on the front hopefully today. I just want to share a new technique I'm trying that is much better. I didn't think I had the room for it, but I realized I could use this board. This is my divinicell that was left over. Covered it with wax paper, taped it down, and I'm pre-wetting out these panels completely on this board, which now I can work on a horizontal surface so it's not dripping all over the place. And then before that, I pre-wet where I want to apply it. Now it'll be as simple as sticking it on and rolling it flat. So I just tried one like this and it was much easier. Using these cheap gloves, quickly pop them off, put on a fresh pair. Really don't mind these cheap gloves. They're not meant for doing this kind of work, but you can change them a lot more often to keep your hands stick free. This is the back side of where I'm doing a layup of fiberglass cloth. I just want to show what I do here to get these corners tight. I just use this yellow masking tape. I don't know if other colors work as well, but the yellow works just fine. And I just put a little bit of tension on it and then stick it on. And that really wraps this cloth around the corners and gives me a much nicer finish on the side that I'm working on. And I found this technique so far has been working very good for me. These corners, otherwise very difficult to get fiberglass heavy cloth, like this is 16-ounce cloth. To get this cloth to wrap around the corners was very difficult. The very first try I did, but on that first try, I put this down, this masking tape, and it worked great. Now that I got it all well taped on the other side, I just get a little bit more resin and I push it into this peel ply, push out any bubbles. The top is sometimes a little challenging, and you get some more resin on there. It's got a lot of turns. You gotta really push towards your work rather than pulling away. Hard to get those corners without developing new bubbles. There's going to be a little piece of stray cloth here, but that's fine. I'm just going to trim that off after. If your roller is dry, like if I'm not doing this with any resin on the roller just starts picking up on the peel ply, it starts lifting it rather than rolling it. You really want to push out all the air bubbles you can. Now that I have those corners all pulled tight with the masking tape, when I roll this out on the edges, I get a much flatter surface than the jagged edge that I normally get. If I just laid this out, I'd be constantly grinding it off. I think you've seen enough of me rolling. Just keep going over this until it's solid like that. Getting all these air pockets out. Alright, I am preparing now to roll fiberglass cloth on the outside bottom of these window frames. I got a sheet out there, that's where I'm going to wet the pieces out. Alright, I laid up my last layer of glass in the front. I used peel ply this time. This has 2 layers of 18-ounce biaxial and then 1 2-inch strip down the middle just to give it a bit of a contour to keep the shape of this whole structure. After this hardens up, I'm going to start on the inside, and then once that inside is fiberglass. Oh, another thing, I put this structure of wood here just to keep these all as straight as possible. So when I'm laying the plexiglass up against it, I have a nice straight edge. Since it's been up here for weeks, it tends to lean a little bit towards the inside just from gravity. But now with all that biaxial fiberglass on it, it should harden up and keep straight. And then I can remove all this structure and I'll start glassing up the front. So I'll show you that tomorrow. So this is the 2-inch strip I put in the middle, and it just gives me a slight curve. So I'm following this curve here. I'm not going to do any more grinding up on the boat. I'm going to do this finishing stuff when we're down on the ground. I mixed up one batch of resin that it got cool quick and it didn't harden for a while, and gravity took its effect and pulled the resin from the top here, and it dripped out the bottom and made a mess. And there's not much I could do about that now unless I grind that off, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. I don't want to go that far backwards. It's just along the top. It happened a little bit at the bottom here too, but what I did was peeled it back and used a syringe with resin in it, and I injected it in there, and it seeped down and filled most of the cavities. So this is my last layer on the outside of these window frames, and now I'm going to start working on the inside. Okay, now I'm all set here to do the inside fiberglassing of these window frames. Got the area all taped off and a tarp spread out over the teak here. Hopefully we don't make any mess. And I got a little station set up here for wetting out the strips. And I'm gonna get started. I'll show you a little bit of it, but it's gonna take a while, so that can be tedious.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you don't miss next episode. Stay tuned and see you next week.